We're proceeding with the bulletin with some breaking news at the very top of this segment as we keep a close track of the Axiom 4 space mission. It seems to be postponed again. That is the news we are receiving at the very top of this hour. Liquid oxygen leak delays the Axiom 4 launch. Liquid O2 leak during fire booster inspection seems to have been reported. The new date for the Axiom 4 launch is to be announced. It has not yet been declared. Remember, there was already a delay in the very launch because of unfavorable weather conditions that had been announced by the team. But right now, we are learning of another challenge on the technical side this time, where we see a liquid O2 leak during fire booster inspections. We will in fact speak to an expert from this very field to understand what exactly was the technical glitch. But before that, let me quickly cut across to Akshita Nandgopal, who's joining us live from Florida at this point. Akshita, well, I wouldn't say a very good morning to you. It is quite late there, but do bring us the latest details at this point as to what exactly is happening, since we learned there is another postponement in the launch of Axiom 4.
That's right, Shreya. Good morning to you, to all of our viewers in India. It's about 9:30 in the night here, and a bit of disappointing news. I'm sure for every Indian watching this, it is a bit disappointing that there's been a delay. But look, better safe than sorry. All possible preventive steps being taken here because this is a manned mission. Right up until this point, the only factor that SpaceX was talking about is weather. We did hear of a liquid oxygen leak, about issues also in the thrust vector, but all of that was fixed, was the messaging we got much before a decision was taken on delaying the mission. This was back on June 10th. So we assumed that they're technically completely sound, that it was only weather that was the deciding factor. But now in those last few preparatory steps in which, you see all the boosters being checked, those are the final rounds of checks that are usually conducted. In that, once again, a liquid oxygen leak has been detected. This is essentially in the rocket, in the Falcon 9 rocket. So they're not taking any chances, which is why it's been pushed. If you're going to ask me when we're going to be seeing the launch take place, look, it's anyone's guess right now. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I've spoken to representatives of Axiom, which is a private space company that's been coordinating this entire mission. At this point, they're saying the final call is with SpaceX. We'll have to wait and see when they're able to give the go-ahead. And considering that there's no date, and because now it's a technical issue, I think we are going to be seeing a delay of a couple of days. Interestingly, while we're seeing a decision being taken based on multiple factors, some within our control, some not really, because things like weather, there's no one can really say what's going to happen next. But even on the weather front, if you're wondering what's with all of this uncertainty, let me just highlight that on June 10th there was another launch. Starlink satellites were launched, and that happened successfully. Because this is a manned mission, they're leaving nothing to chance, as should be the case. So even if there's that picture perfect condition isn't provided, they're calling off the mission. But right now, because this is a technical issue of a liquid oxygen leak, they have to ensure utmost care, and that's why they've called off the launch for tomorrow morning for me, and of course this evening for India. But essentially we were ready. It's 9:30 here right now in the night. In another 1 hour I was expected there at the Kennedy Space Center, because we were going to be taken in buses to a location where the crew handover was going to happen in just about 3 hours from now. That was how close we were to actually seeing the launch happening and all of the protocols kicking in. So it is essentially the nth moment that this delay, this postponement has been announced. But like I said, expected in these kind of space missions. Even 45 seconds to count down, there are possibilities of the mission being called off, because like I said, there's zero room for error here, Shreya.
Absolutely, Akshita. I think you've pointed out very well that better safe than sorry at this given point, and definitely all our fingers do remain crossed at this given point. But Akshita, do stay with us. I will come back to you for live updates from Florida at this given point. But let me also bring in Dr. Ravi Margasahayam, former NASA scientist, who's also joining us from Florida at this point. Doctor, thank you so much for speaking to us, and a very good evening to you. Though I would say at this given point, there is a little bit of hesitation, or rather a temporary hiatus to the entire mission, given that there are some technical glitches that we are learning of. You have been in this very, not just in this profession, I would say, but you have been in this field and on the launch pads for 30 long years. So do help us understand at this stage a technical hindrance of this sort where we see a liquid oxygen leakage issue being looked after at this stage. What does it translate on the ground for this very mission?
Thank you for inviting me. As I said, my expertise lies with the space shuttle program because I was involved with that for 30 years and launched about 100 shuttle rockets. And just like space shuttle, they also Falcon 9 Block 5 uses liquid oxygen. And so basically, when you have a leak like that, the oxidizer leak, it's a very dangerous situation, and any kind of spark, can ignite the whole place up. So we are I think in this case, it's a very judicious thing to make sure that, all the leaks are purged. Wherever the leak is, it has to be fixed because it looks like they had a couple of times these kind of leaks on Starlink. And now they have thrust vector control, TVC problem. So combined with that, you want to gimbal the engine so you know where your thrust is going. So it is a very important thing that in static testing, that's why we do on the launch pad to make sure that we check all these things. I think one of your people were saying that about launch delays for like 34 seconds. Now I've seen launch delay on the space shuttle with 1.5 seconds left, when we shut the engines off and all the launch got off, even in Kalpana Chawla's case, second launch, where we waited for 7-8 attempts, so this is common for rockets. I'm very particular about launching rockets because I come from the engineering and safety background. My background is vibroacoustics, rocket noise and vibration. So I always tell people, I said, look, it's not, when you're launching rockets, it's not like flipping burgers or flipping pizza, you do everything with due diligence. Otherwise, you can make one tiny mistake. Rocket has like 3 million parts. And all those 3 million parts have to come together during liftoff. And, that's where systems engineering, systems integration, moving the rocket to the pad, many things can go wrong. Not just weather. Weather is just one problem we have, but also leaks, yes. But just moving the rocket to the pad and getting it ready, we have very many problems. So I think SpaceX is doing due diligence. I know Gerstenmaier, he was my boss in NASA for many 30 years, I guess, or more. William Gerstenmaier, he's the guy who said, okay, no more launch today, or we'll check it out until we solve all the technical issues. And that's a good feeling for me because don't forget, this is human space flight. We are sending humans, my brothers and your brothers and sisters and stuff like that, So we just don't want to take any risks. There is a risk posture, but there is a risk not to take posture also. Because what is the delay? Okay, you go 10 days delay, so what? I mean, Sunita Williams came 1 year later. So what? We did some experiments there. So, again, the delay, we have waited, India has waited 41 years to send an Indian to the ISS. Going back 1997, I came to see Dr. Kasturi Rangan, and I told him, I said, look, please get on the bandwagon of ISS. And we would have sent the Indian astronaut already there. And it didn't happen in 97, but I guess patience is a virtue. So I'm okay, we wait 41 years, so what?
Absolutely.
So
it is a temporary delay, you would say. Absolutely. And it is definitely quite a big chapter for India as well, as Group Captain Subhanshu Shukla will also be taking this flight. Yes, we have in fact been discussing this in depth as to how important this very mission is for our country as well, for ISRO as well, and for our space missions as well. But right now, let's bring back the focus on this delay, or rather the temporary postponement of this mission. Akshita, I'll come to you next. Are we at this given point picking up at all in terms of what might be an expected date or timing for the launch?
Impossible to say, Shreya, honestly. There's no point sticking our neck out right now and saying it's going to happen in the next 24 hours, which is why even yesterday while I was reporting live, I kept adding caveats saying, look, right now the proposed date is Wednesday. We don't know if that launch is going to happen. There were 2 times given by SpaceX of 8 a.m. Wednesday Eastern time, where I am, or Thursday 7:37 a.m. But that was when the situation was very different, where they were saying weather is the only factor. Now when we're talking about a technical delay during the hot test, that's usually the norm, the protocol before a launch. When they've detected now that there are some issues, I sense that they will take their time in fixing these issues, doing those tests, essentially, fixing all possible issues. Because like I said, they're not leaving anything to chance right now. So it could be 24 hours, it could be 48 hours, it could be a week even. And I'd agree with Dr. Margasahayam here on this, that, a few days, I know we're all getting a little impatient, but after so many years, after 4 decades, a few days shouldn't matter whatsoever. Safety first, and that's clearly the priority of the officials as well. So it'll be impossible right now to hazard a guess of how much of a delay we're talking about, when is the next date, but I must say that SpaceX, Axiom, etc. have been extremely transparent in their communications. Whether weather is a factor, the climate is a factor, or whether it's technical issues, they've immediately put out all possible communication that they can on what's gone wrong and if they have a later date. So the last communication that we'd received when, it was pushed from June 10th to Wednesday to today, at that point, they had very clearly said that it's going to happen within these 2 days, possibly. No earlier than is always the wording that's used in these kind of missions, because they know about the possibility of further delay as well. In the latest communication that's come in from Axiom, from SpaceX, from ISRO, none of them have spoken about a timeline. None of them have said this and this date is when we're looking, or no earlier than. None of that mentioned. They've just said postponed for now. I'd wait maybe a couple of hours. Like I said, it's past 9:30 in the night here. I sense that on Wednesday morning my time, which will be Wednesday evening in India, that's when we could perhaps expect some communication of when it could happen. But even that, at this point, it's impossible to say 100% this is the date, because at the end of the day, we're talking about 4 people going on board that particular spacecraft, headed to space. There's no room, no margin for error whatsoever. The last thing we need is some sort of error being detected once the space mission takes off, once you've got, the Falcon up in the air. So it's great that they've detected it at this stage, I would say, during the hot test. And no matter how last minute it is, like I said, better safe than sorry.
Absolutely, and given that it is a manned mission, definitely these checks are very crucial at this given point, at this nth hour, in fact, as we are speaking. Dr. Margasahayam, I would want to come to you and understand a little more about the troubleshooting process that is currently underway. Just to get an idea, just to give our viewers an idea of how long do such troubleshooting process, especially right now, the challenge that we're looking at is a liquid oxygen leakage. How long does it take to, address such a problem on the ground?
Yeah, I mean, knowing my background with the space shuttle, it's a issue that it's not like we cannot solve it, but again, it's a question of how big is the problem and what is the extent of the problem and where all it's coming from, and sometimes we may have to take the engine out and replace the engine and stuff like that. Or now in this case of thrust vector control, we may have to look at why it is happening like that. And, it may take 1 week, few days to 1 week to even 10 days, because also don't forget, once we lose timing with the ISS docking, we may have to extend the docking until extend the launch until a particular date is set, because there will be other vehicles coming to the ISS I built the ISS with the entire thing was built over 10 years and sent many payloads. So I know that we cannot send a rocket to the ISS because ISS
Right.
is my baby, $250 billion by the
Absolutely.
by.
Absolutely. Dr.
And,
Marcus, I'm so sorry to interrupt you here, but we've completely run out of time. But I would say thank you so much for joining us on India Today. And Akshita, to you too. And we will keep coming back to you for all the latest updates from the ground, from the Kennedy Space Center as to when the launch is now scheduled to take place after this delay. But yes, all our fingers do remain crossed for this very mission. It is a big mission for our country as well, as we see Group Captain Subhanshu Shukla will be taking flight along with the rest of the 3 crew members of this very mission. In fact, speaking of, Group Captain Subhanshu Shukla of the Indian Air Force is set for his tryst with history. But do you know why most astronauts are pilots? Yes, because he himself is also one who was commissioned in the IAF. Well, the tradition of selecting pilots as astronauts dates back to the very dawn of space age. Pilots, especially those from military backgrounds, bring a powerful combination of physical, technical and psychological capabilities. Here's a report to bring you more details.
Group Captain Subhanshu Shukla of the Indian Air Force will be the first astronaut holding an Indian passport to travel to the International Space Station as part of the Axiom 4 mission. He will be the second Indian to venture into space following Wing Commander Rakesh Sharma, who flew aboard the Soviet Soyuz T-11 mission in 1984. Both fighter test pilots from the Indian Air Force. Even Indian origin Sunita Williams was once a US Navy pilot, and Kalpana Chawla, while not from a military background, was a trained civilian pilot. The tradition of selecting pilots as astronauts dates back to the very dawn of the space age. In fact, the first human to venture into space in 1961, cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin was a trained fighter pilot. Similarly, NASA's first astronaut, Alan Shepard, was also a pilot from a military background. Pilots, especially those from military backgrounds, bring a powerful combination of physical, technical and psychological capabilities that align perfectly with the realities of operating in space. To begin with, pilots are trained in systems thinking and real-time decision-making. Pilots are physically well prepared for the extreme forces of space travel. Fighter pilots regularly train to withstand accelerations of 5 to 9 G, conditioning their bodies to stay conscious under intense pressure. Pilots are also trained in crew resource management (CRM). This includes communication, decision-making and teamwork under stress. Today, astronauts come from all kinds of backgrounds. About 40% of all astronauts who have ever been to space were from non-fighter pilot backgrounds, and that share is now increasing. Bureau Report, India Today.
And the big breaking news this hour is that unfortunately the AX-4 space mission has been postponed yet again, delayed this time not due to the weather but because of technical issues as well. In a communication that's been put out by SpaceX and Axiom 4, it's been made clear right now that the delay is due to a leak, a liquid oxygen leak. This is in the Falcon rocket. So that's something that's being looked into right now. As far as when the launch could be, it's anyone's guess right now because there's been no communication from SpaceX or from the authorities on when the launch could happen. Look, for the last 24 to 48 hours, there's been a lot of talk about the weather conditions, about the fact that there's been some rain forecast. Now, with there being a technical issue, we could be looking at a much longer delay as well. And considering this is a manned mission, they're taking no chances, as should be the case. So the wait to see another Indian after 4 decades going to space for Captain Shukla to reach for the stars, shoot for the stars, literally, well, that's going to take a bit longer. And I know a lot of us are very, very impatient, but this is how space missions work. Right up till the very last second, there is always the possibility of a delay, and for obvious reasons, because they can't afford to take any chances. All necessary precautionary preventive steps will be taken to ensure there's no room for error, for disaster to strike. So as much as we feel disappointed, it's a great call that's been taken by the authorities that right before the launch, just as the hot test was conducted, this kind of a leak was found. And so immediately they took that step saying, look, we cannot afford to leave anything to chance here. And so we're calling off the launch for Wednesday. 8 a.m. was in fact the time that was given here Eastern time. So that's tomorrow morning for me. It's about 10:30 right now on Tuesday night, which is 5:30 in the evening there. So this evening is when we were expecting that there would be the launch taking place, but the delay happening. Let me bring in on this broadcast Dr. Ravi Margasahayam, who is the Global Space Ambassador of NASA. Dr. Margasahayam, I know that this is part and parcel. Okay, before that, let me bring in Shibu Tripathi also, who's joining me with the latest updates on this. Shibu, what do you make of this delay? In the communication, there's no mention of when it's postponed to. You know, so far, while it was focused on weather with a technical issue, does that translate to a longer delay as per you?
Good evening, Akshita, and good morning to all our viewers. According to the latest input that we have received, that the Falcon 9 has developed several technical snags during the static fire test. Now, we had reported this yesterday as well, that SpaceX did claim that it had fixed those issues, but it seems that those issues keep on persisting. Falcon 9 usable rocket that SpaceX has developed. Now, this same rocket booster that was supposed to launch Group Captain Subhanshu Shukla to space had launched before. In the previous mission, it did launch Starlink satellites and successfully returned back. The technical snag was noticed during that launch itself. However, it was ignored in the refurbishment. Now, we have to understand that the Falcon 9, since it's a reusable rocket, SpaceX has a very fast turnaround time. It refurbishes the rocket and brings it out on back for a launch. But this one is more tricky because it's a human mission. Now, we did notice that yesterday they did conduct a Starlink mission despite the weather alert. But now with the Falcon 9 booster, the issue seems to persist for a longer period of time. There are also, they might have to take the entire rocket off the pad to fix it again. Now, if that happens, then this launch is going to be postponed most likely across this week and most likely into the next week. So we'll be looking forward as to the next date that SpaceX gives out. So far, there has been no communication from Axiom Space, SpaceX, or ISRO into what is the next date that we're looking at. So we're looking at any update that comes our way from Axiom, and we'll have to wait for it.
Shibu, yeah. Shibu, we also know that there was a liquid oxygen leak about a few days ago, and SpaceX had made it clear that the first delay from June 10th to June 11th wasn't attributed to technical issues. It was only weather conditions. So considering that at that time too, they had seen a liquid oxygen leak, and now that's again been reported, what do you make of that? Do you think that that was the first cause of the delay too, in hindsight?
It was part of the delay. Initially, the delay was due to weather because there were high winds in the launch area. That was a concern from SpaceX that the liquid oxidizer had a leak. However, they said that it was fixed. Now, again, today, it seems that the issue keeps on persisting. They're going to take a lot of time, at least a day or 2 days to fix this issue. Liquid oxidizer is used in the combustion bay in the Merlin engines to basically power the Merlin engines and to launch the rocket. Now, if the fuel and oxidizer has an issue, it's a major concern for SpaceX to take any chance with it. Going forward, they will have to take it down. They will have to relook at the Falcon 9 Merlin engines as to where the issues are, what technicalities need to be done, and what timeline it can be done. Now, we know that Subhanshu Shukla and the entire AX4 crew mission was ready for launch today. It seems that their quarantine might extend again. They'll have to relook at the new orbital parameters as well. It also now will also have to take into consideration
it's
the availability
definitely
of
challenging
support
for
on
the
space
astronauts because they'll remain in quarantine for that much longer. But my guess is that they were fully prepared for this, knowing full well that in a manned mission, these kind of delays are inevitable. that if there's even the smallest of challenge, there is no way the likes of SpaceX, NASA will go ahead with that mission. Shibu, just stay on with me. We're going to continue getting updates from you. Shibu pointed out a very important point here as well, which is that if looking at this technical issue, you see the Falcon 9 rocket being removed from the launch pad, being taken for further tests, that will inevitably mean a longer delay. It could be a week, it could be 2 weeks. So at this point, it's anyone's guess as to how long it's going to take, especially since there's been no communication. The last time around there was a delay, immediately SpaceX announced that, look, in the next 24 hours or even 48 hours, we aim to launch, giving a time of 8 a.m. Wednesday, 5:30 p.m. India time today. And also Thursday, 7:37 a.m. was the backup time that was given. This time around, mind you, there's been no correspondence or communication on when the next date of launch is. And that itself tells you that at this point, things are a little unpredictable. There's no way that officials are in any position right now to confirm for us how much time it's going to take. So it's no longer just about one factor, the weather. It's also about a lot more here of technical snags being immediately clipped to ensure that there is no room for any sort of error. These liquid oxygen leaks are a very serious issue. It was found in the hot test, which is a test done of the boosters just before the launch happens. That's when this leak was identified. So now they're trying to ensure that they can actually look into all of these aspects and plug it as soon as possible. They're not going to be in any hurry because they'll want to ensure that in this kind of a manned mission, all possible steps, precautions are taken. Like Shibu pointed out, imagine this. On June 10th, which was the original date of launch, there was another launch that took place, the launch of Starlink satellites, and that went as per schedule. So many asked, why didn't this happen then? If the weather was permissible for that kind of a launch, why didn't this happen? The answer is quite simple. It's a manned mission, so there's no room for error, which is why SpaceX took that call, that even if we're talking about the winds being in moderate instead of the ideal condition of low, they're not going to take that chance. They want everything to be 100% perfect and ideal, because that's when you can ensure that there is zero room for error. So as much as we're all disappointed, we should also be thankful that, this was identified at this particular stage, because what it means is that whenever the launch happens, you've ensured all possible leaks are plugged, you've ensured all issues are addressed, and it is a 100% safe launch, which is what we're all hoping for Captain Shukla and the 3 other astronauts who will be on board this space mission. For them, of course, that quarantine period gets extended for as long as, when the launch is expected to happen. As long as this delay remains, they will remain in quarantine. I'll take this back across to Shibu for more details. Shibu, if we were looking at past precedents, past incidents like this, where there have been delays due to technical issues like a leak, what can we really learn from that with regards to this? Can that give us some sort of a timeline of how long it could take, or what's the process that's followed?
Definitely, Akshita. I mean, SpaceX does not take any chance when it comes to human or manned space missions. We saw during Boeing snags, her mission, which was supposed to be 8 days, then it went on and extended up to 8 months when she came back earlier this year in January 2025. Now, we have also noticed that during Artemis mission, which was not a manned mission, NASA did not take any chance again. That mission was delayed multiple times, once just 40 seconds before launch. So whenever a rocket launch happens, whenever a big space mission happens, these kind of delays are inevitable. These kind of delays are factored into the entire system as to what happens, as to what if these delays happen, what can be the next. So SpaceX and Axiom Space, NASA and ISRO must have backed up these plans. They must be ready with alternatives as to when to launch. Now, we did see that during yesterday's delay, there was an instant announcement of a new date for today. But this time, that is not the case. Now, we also have learned that there was a backup date for Thursday in case the launch does not happen on Wednesday. But there has been no communication as to next launch date, which now indicates that there could be in terms of a couple of days, a week or more. We don't know at the moment, but definitely it's not happening today or tomorrow.
So not today, not tomorrow. You know, the backup date of Thursday, 7:37 a.m. was given when weather was the only condition, the factor that they were looking into as the reason for the delay. Now with technical issues, we could be looking at a much longer delay, but nobody is going to rush them on this. They're going to be allowed to take their time, figure out the issues, plug them immediately, and then move forward. But like, you heard from Shibu there, we've seen multiple such incidents where right down to the last second, the mission is given a go-ahead and then they call it off. We're talking about lives at stake here. We're talking about billions of dollars at stake here. So all necessary precautions will be taken. Like I said, better this way than, on launch day when you're just moments away, something goes wrong. And that's the worst case scenario, really, that will play out. So I know we're all waiting for that moment, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that it happens at the earliest, but we'll also pray and count on it being a completely safe mission, which should be priority number one, not really the timeline. Look, we waited for 40 plus years. We can afford to wait for a few more days before this actually happens. But let me take this across to my colleague Shreya Kundu. She's standing by in the studio to get us more details about this delay that's been announced by SpaceX. Shreya, it's over to you.
Very true, Akshata. I mean, 40 years wait that we have seen, and another few days would be nothing compared to that. But yes, viewers, let me quickly take you through some of the technical details that we have also accessed in terms of why the postponement of the Axiom 4 mission. Now, firstly, the technical issue is what has stalled the mission for a second time, because the first time it was a weather update that had come in, the weather not being too favorable for this very mission to launch. However, we have, as we've been saying, and as Akshita has also been reiterating, we've seen another launch by Starlink on June 10, that is only yesterday, despite this particular weather warning having come in. But when it comes to a manned mission like the Axiom 4, there is nothing that they're leaving to chance. Now, the second time that we see 7 seconds of hot test was carried out on the launch pad, and that is where they entirely saw this problem being flagged and highlighted, the 7 seconds of this test being taking place on the launch pad. Now, liquid oxygen, LOX, is the thing that has leaked. That is the leak that's been detected during the static fire test. This is the technical glitch that we are speaking of this time. Booster stage test has revealed the fault. That is what has highlighted this very technical glitch, and that is what's being looked into. A troubleshooting process is currently underway to look into this very glitch. More importantly, the SpaceX has identified the issue during the pre-launch inspection itself. That is what's made it even more important, because yes, it has, in fact, come in at a time when this particular mission is at a pre-launch inspection stage. It's not at a time where it's absolutely at the nth hour where we see, and in fact, we had a former NASA scientist joining us who's worked on these launch pads before, and he also said that instead of this coming in at the very last 1 second or 1.5 seconds before the launch, it's good that it's been detected at a pre-launch state. Now, the validation tests have been planned, is what we are learning. Also, ISRO, NASA, SpaceX and Axiom are currently all working together in collaboration to resolve this very issue. And these are the latest details and the entire technicalities involved with this very mission, with this very postponement and the technical glitch that's taken place.
Thanks very much, Shreya, for those details. Can I just say that, as much as we feel that we've been caught by surprise by this news, imagine all of the officials who've been working on this mission. We were given the go-ahead, by the way. I had my accreditation badge. I was told to report there at 11:30, which is essentially in about 20 to half an hour from now. I was supposed to be there, and then we were to take a bus, go to the crew handover, which would happen in 2 hours from now, where the crew essentially would step out of their quarantine, take Teslas, go right up to the launch pad. All of this was given the green signal right up until a few hours ago when we were told, no, it's all called off. So all of the preps that were done for each of these steps now on standby, on hold till the next date of this particular mission launch is confirmed by SpaceX. The final authority on this is SpaceX. They're in charge of the launch. It's their equipment, of course, the Dragon, as well as Falcon 9 rocket that's being used. So while, of course, NASA, Axiom, ISRO and the other space agencies are being consulted, SpaceX is the authority, will give the green signal on when they're ready to launch. And for that, they will have to ensure that all issues are resolved. There is a possibility of the Falcon 9 rocket, the very rocket that's reusable, the one that goes up into the air and then comes back almost as if you've hit the rewind button. And it's a beautiful sight to see. But it's in the Falcon 9 rocket that there have been issues. SpaceX is going to address that and then give a date of launch. So it could take some time because there are reports that suggest that while everything was set up ready in the launch pad many days ago, now you could see the Falcon 9 rocket being removed from the launch pad, being taken back to its base where there will be multiple tests conducted and then once again replugged in at the launch pad. So all of that could take time. It could mean a longer delay. So just brace yourself for that. Let's get you more details of what this really means. We've spoken to several experts, including a former NASA scientist, and listen in to what he said also about this particular delay and how it's very much part of the process protocol that's followed.
Just like space shuttle, they also, Falcon 9 Block 5 uses liquid oxygen. And so basically, when you have a leak like that, the oxidizer leak, it's a very dangerous situation, and any kind of spark, can ignite the whole place up. So we are I think in this case, it's a very judicious thing to make sure that, all the leaks are purged. Wherever the leak is, it has to be fixed because it looks like they had a couple of times these kind of leaks on Starlink, and now they have thrust vector control (TVC) problem. So combined with that, you want to gimbal the engine so you know where your thrust is going.
So that's Dr. Marga Sahayam highlighting that, you want to ensure that all steps are taken, all precautions are taken, and that any small issue is immediately addressed, because anything in this kind of a mission can go completely awry. They don't want to take that chance. What this means for the astronauts, including Group Captain Shukla, is that he remains in quarantine till the time of launch. So if it's pushed by a week, it's pushed by 2 weeks, 3 weeks, any amount of time, because we can't give you a specific timeline here right now. That much time, they will remain in quarantine. So it's tough times for them, or at least we think so, but I'm sure they are fully equipped, fully new and mentally prepared for these kind of delays, because like I said, it's part and parcel of this kind of a mammoth space mission as well. For Group Captain Shukla, of course, he's got the hopes and dreams of billions of Indians riding on his shoulders, because after 4 decades, you're seeing an Indian going to space, the first Indian ever to go to the International Space Station. Let's take a look at our next report of what makes this mission so historic, also because of the fact that you have Captain Shukla from the IAF, a test pilot, to now an astronaut.
Group Captain Subhanshu Shukla of the Indian Air Force will be the first astronaut holding an Indian passport to travel to the International Space Station as part of the Axiom 4 mission. He will be the second Indian to venture into space following Wing Commander Rakesh Sharma, who flew aboard the Soviet Soyuz T-11 mission in 1984. Both fighter test pilots from the Indian Air Force. Even Indian origin Sunita Williams was once a US Navy pilot, and Kalpana Chawla, while not from a military background, was a trained civilian pilot. The tradition of selecting pilots as astronauts dates back to the very dawn of the space age. In fact, the first human to venture into space in 1961, cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin was a trained fighter pilot. Similarly, NASA's first astronaut, Alan Shepard, was also a pilot from a military background. Pilots, especially those from military backgrounds, bring a powerful combination of physical, technical, and psychological capabilities that align perfectly with the realities of operating in space. To begin with, pilots are trained in systems thinking and real-time decision-making. Pilots are physically well prepared for the extreme forces of space travel. Fighter pilots regularly train to withstand accelerations of 5 to 9G, conditioning their bodies to stay conscious under intense pressure. Pilots are also trained in crew resource management (CRM). This includes communication, decision-making and teamwork under stress. Today, astronauts come from all kinds of backgrounds. About 40% of all astronauts who have ever been to space were from non-fighter pilot backgrounds, and that share is now increasing. Bureau Report, India Today.
And we're all so very proud of Captain Shukla. We've all got our hopes right up there for when he's a part of this mission, for when the launch happens. There's also a lot riding on his shoulders. Why do I say that? Because as ISRO has referred to him, he is the Gagan Yatri. He's part of the Gaganyaan mission. That's when his name first came into the limelight, and then handpicked from the Gaganyaan mission to be a part of the AX4 space mission. From this very mission, ISRO has a whole lot to learn. There are handpicked experiments that ISRO also will be conducting, that Captain Shukla will be conducting for ISRO. Over 60 research experiments in all, not just for ISRO, but other space stations also coming together to ensure that there are a lot of learnings for future such manned missions. And Shreya is going to run you through that particular list, some of the big experiments that will be conducted on board the ISS when this mission takes off. Shreya, over to you.
Right, Akshita. So when we're speaking of this mammoth mission, there are 4 countries in collaboration that we see: US, Hungary, Poland and India. Now, out of the 60 experiments that even Akshita mentioned about, there are about 10 experiments which India will be specifically focusing on. What are some of these research experiments? Let me take you through them in detail. Number 1 is research on muscle loss in space. A lot of these experiments has a lot to do with microgravity and how operations can take place in microgravity. One of them would be research on muscle loss in space. So especially the focus would be on manned activities in space. Then we move on to study of crops grown in space. This is a rather important part of this very space mission that we see as to studying crops and how they in fact end up reacting to microgravity in space and how their growth gets affected in the same process. Now, survival of water bears in space as well. A lot of flora and fauna that we see the focus being on in this very mission. Again, study of microalgae growth on the ISS as well. Remember, this would be the first Indian citizen on the ISS, in fact, conducting these very experiments. Again, sprouting salad seeds in space. That is also a rather interesting, rather interesting part within the very agriculture ambit, the focus of the agricultural ambit that we are taking a look at when it comes to this very mission. Study of cyanobacteria in space is another very mission that we're looking at, another experiment that we are looking at. Again, microgravity screen interactions. That's what we are trying to mention here. Microgravity, or rather experiments associated with how things operate underneath microgravity. What impact does microgravity have on these particular aspects that we've mentioned: crops, bacteria, algae. These are what we will be looking at in terms of India's focus in this very mammoth mission. Now, back to you, Akshita, with more details on what exactly is happening on the ground as we are discussing this very mission.
All right, thanks, Shreya. We're going to keep coming back to you. But from the list of experiments that Shreya mentioned, one that particularly excites me is, the growth of the seeds, germination of seeds in space. That's something that's an experiment that's been handpicked by ISRO. So when Captain Shukla heads to the International Space Station, he has with him several variety of seeds that he will be taking there to the ISS to see how really they behave in microgravity, to see if they actually germinate. That one particularly fascinates me. But focusing really on Captain Shukla, his journey. I'm sure all of you are wondering, if there were 4 Gagan Yatris, if there were 4 astronauts part of the Gaganyaan mission, why was Captain Shukla handpicked for the AX4 space mission? We tell you why in our next report. His credentials as a test pilot and how that's perhaps helped him to be chosen as the pilot for this particular mission.
Not all heroes wear capes. Some wear a spacesuit and carry a nation's pride into orbit. After 40 years, an Indian is all set for a space sojourn. And the chosen one? Group Captain Subhanshu Shukla, who's part of the AX-4 mission. Shukla became a household name in February 2024 when Prime Minister Modi formally introduced us to the Gaganyaan astronauts.
40 वर्ष के बाद कोई भारतीय अंतरिक्ष में जाने वाला है, लेकिन इस बार टाइम भी हमारा है, काउंटडाउन भी हमारा है और रॉकेट भी हमारा है.
Months later, when the ISRO-NASA tie-up led to the AX-4 mission seat for an Indian astronaut, Shukla was the chosen one. For him, it's a dream come true, and his journey is one that will inspire billions.
I'm excited about all the aspects of this mission, starting with the first time that we will be in a position to observe the Earth from a vantage point that only a handful of people on this planet have ever experienced. And after that, the experience of floating in microgravity and, everyday activities that seem so simple for us, like walking, sleeping, eating, or, drinking water, they all become very different once you are up in space. So I'm really looking forward to having that experience in space.
Shukla was inducted in the IAF in June 2006, and as a seasoned pilot, he has over 2,000 hours of flying experience. A native of Lucknow, Shukla has gone from an IAF officer to now astronaut. Captain Shuks, as he's fondly called, has spoken repeatedly of how Rakesh Sharma has also been a huge source of inspiration for him.
Wing Commander Rakesh Sharma, who was the first Indian astronaut, he has been like a mentor to me at every step in this journey. He has always been there to guide me, how to navigate this entire journey right from the time of selection till this mission. He is also from the Indian Air Force, a test pilot like I am, so we share a lot of common things between us.
Group Captain Shukla's journey to space is one every Indian will watch with pride and awe as he takes flight with the prayers of 1 billion Indians. He carries our hopes beyond the sky. Captain Shukla, a pioneer charting India's path through the universe. Bureau Report, India Today.
So I know it's a long, long wait for that historic moment of Captain Shukla blasting off into space as part of the AX-4 space mission. We are going to have to be a little patient, keep our fingers crossed that all technical issues are ironed out and that hopefully at the soonest we will see the launch taking place. But right now it's a prerogative of SpaceX to essentially decide what happens next. But remember, one of the most interesting nuggets really that's part of this mission is that you will also have Captain Shukla headed to space with a bit of home with him. What do I mean by that? Well, he'll have Indian delicacies that he'll be carrying with him all the way to the International Space Station. So for 14 days while he's there, he'll still get to eat Indian desi food.
A bit of desi swad in space. As billions await Captain Subhanshu Shukla's space sojourn, he gets to take a little bit of home with him. What are we talking about? Well, the astronauts on board the International Space Station will get some yummy Indian food during their 2-week stay. From moong halwa to amras, a bunch of Indian delicacies have been handpicked for the AK-4 astronauts. While NASA's protocol for astronaut foods is to be followed strictly in the AK-4 mission, the Indian Space Research Organization officials said a few Indian food items would be available for Group Captain Shukla.
I am carrying a few delicacies from India. You know, we have a very rich culinary culture. And so a few of the items that I'm carrying are mango nectar. I'm also carrying moong dal halwa and carrot halwa. Some of them are my favorites, and I am so happy to be able to carry them, share it with my colleagues and also the astronauts who are on the station right now.
A video emerged from months ago when Captain Shukla and the other 3 crew members underwent a taste test to choose the food of their choice.
Today was a food tasting session. So as you see, we have a long list of food items that we had to try and give scores whether we like it, not like it. And based on the feedback that we give today, the food items would be packed and they will be sent to the station for us to consume during our mission.
For Captain Shuks, as his crewmates fondly call him, he'll get some ghar ka khana in space, and the menu variety has been carefully curated to also ensure that the Gaganyaan mission will also see more Indian flavors in the spotlight. Bureau Report, India Today.
An interesting tidbit of information there for you on what Captain Shukla will carry with him, including some food from India. And the idea, again, is to ensure that with that kind of a step, when ISRO goes ahead with its Gaganyaan mission, you can see similar steps of Indian food being taken to space and whatnot. Of course, that's a much shorter mission where you're not going to be seeing days in space or any of that. But nonetheless, a lot of learning from even the smallest of steps, initiatives that are taken. But let's talk about what happened 4 decades ago. I know there are a lot of comparisons between Rakesh Sharma and Group Captain Subhanshu Shukla. There are similarities, but also a world of difference in the times that we lived in versus now. And so we want to take you back in time. 4 decades ago, when Rakesh Sharma scripted history by being the first ever Indian to go to space. Subhanshu Shukla will be the second Indian to go to space, but the first ever to visit the International Space Station.
40 years after this moment, an Indian is headed to space. Rakesh Sharma scripted history in 1984 as he became the first Indian to head to space. Wing Commander Sharma was on board Soviet Union's Soyuz T-11 and was in space for 7 days. Rakesh Sharma was stationed on board Soviet Union's Salyut 7 orbital station. Remember this iconic moment when then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi spoke to Sharma while he was in space?
ऊपर से भारत कैसा दिखता है आपको?
जी मैं बगैर किसी झिझक के कह सकता हूँ कि सारे जहां से अच्छा.
After 40 years, Captain Shukla will be scripting a whole lot of historic firsts. While Sharma spent 7 days in space, Shukla is poised to spend 2 to 3 weeks in space. Another first, Group Captain Shukla will be stationed at the International Space Station, the first Indian to do so.
Wing Commander Rakesh Sharma, who was the first Indian astronaut, he has been like a mentor to me at every step in this journey. He has always been there to guide me, how to navigate this entire journey right from the time of selection till this mission. He is also from the Indian Air Force, a test pilot like I am, so we share a lot of common things between us. And I think he understands very well the kind of challenges, the kind of preparation that we need for executing this mission. So it was great to have him on my side while I was navigating this journey.
After Rakesh Sharma, Captain Subhanshu Shukla is all set to script history for India. And thereafter, hopefully, we'll see many more Indians headed to space as part of ISRO's Gaganyaan mission. Bureau Report, India Today.
Well, this is the big mission that we are speaking of, Axiom 4, a mission which will be scripting history, especially for us and our country, India, as Group Captain Subhanshu Shukla will be shooting to the stars, a first for an Indian citizen to step foot into the International Space Station. Now, the Axiom 4 mission is, in fact, this very particular private spaceflight mission to the International Space Station is being operated by Axiom Space in partnership with NASA.